You want me to share the screen?
A very warm welcome to all our participants. It's a lovely Monday afternoon and we are all set to begin with our today's webinar. HR Association of India along with Great Manager Institute of India welcomes you all to the 2021 Dialogue Masterclass series on the topic Leading People in Current Times. Great Manager Institute conduct a great people manager survey in India and have come up with the list of top 100 managers, and the recognition is powered by Forbes India and Great Manager Institute, where we are fortunate to have 5 managers from the esteemed list who will be sharing their success stories, mantras, hits and misses, and achievements over leading their teams in current times. To know more about HR Association of India and Great Manager Institute, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. Request all our participants to kindly follow the webinar guidelines mentioned in the chat window. It's a privilege to start the series with Mr. Ashwin Srivastava, co-founder, Great Manager Institute, co-founder and chief executive, Sapio Analytics. A serial entrepreneur and a venture capitalist, Ashwin has helped build multi-million-dollar entities and is a data geek. He was part of the Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia 2017 list under the finance and venture capital category. He has invested in startups as well as growing companies in form of seed stage and growth capital investment respectively. He sits on the board of 8 companies across the globe and is an active advisor to the companies he invests in. He is also an advisor to the several government bodies in his role at Sapio Analytics. Ashwin holds a degree in engineering from IIT Bombay. I would also like to congratulate him for becoming Forbes official member of its council. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would like to welcome him and I would like to hand over the platform to you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Peterson, for those kind words. So this session is with Great People Managers. Now, of course, since Great Manager Institute itself is responsible for finding India's greatest Great People Managers, so I'm definitely not in that list. But I do work with a number of such great managers regularly. So in this session today, I will try to, kind of take all of us through some anecdotes of some of these great people managers and talk about some of the concepts which makes a people manager great. And then I think the real fun will be, because it is called the dialogue series, so the real fun will be in the dialogue. So I'll hope that you can ask me any question about any of my works or any of the context that I'll be talking about, and that will be great. I think that will be the real fun of the session today. So shall we start by sharing my screen? There is a small presentation. Hello. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we are able to see it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so and before I start, of course, I would like to thank you, Peterson, and the HR Association of India for giving me this opportunity, and all of these amazing participants who are there today. So, leading people in the current times, that's the topic for the day. We have been, the current times have changed significantly from what used to be, what management leadership used to be since, maybe years ago. The last 1 year, the amount of change that we have seen has changed the context, the concept of leadership itself, while certain things remain as important as ever. What I will do is, let's say, begin with a small story. And this is the story of one of our great people managers, who's been part of our list. So this person has been the regional sales head at a housing finance company. And of course, when the pandemic came, there was a lot of uncertainty. There is still a lot of uncertainty in certain sectors. It has been the job of leaders to make sure that this uncertainty is solved to a great extent. So, in his domain, also, the sales team did not know what is to be done, especially the real estate sector, as we know, had been significantly impacted. Work had stopped completely in many parts. So there was a chilling effect on sales. Everything was like, okay, we don't know what is to be done, how things are supposed to go, and the team was grappling with sales target getting missed, deals getting lost. It was quite obvious that that things were not in good shape. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this story with all of us here is just to give one example of how certain things which an individual or in this case a sales leader does with their team that can actually lead to achievement of business results while also maintaining the right kind of mindset which the team should be having without putting them under undue pressure. So this is something as a good example for a sales team, but it can actually be kind of implemented in different ways across different teams by kind of drawing some things out of it. So this person, this particular superhero that we have, he's also, as I mentioned, a great people manager listed by Great Manager Institute. He ushered in a practice called target free. Now, the whole concept was that this, and it's a very simple concept. He understood very clearly that now there are certain personal challenges which people are also facing through in these times. All of us are very much aware of what how the economy had been impacted about a year ago. And this great people manager, he started looking at individual sales target of each individual, each person, and also tried to understand what liabilities they have for themselves at that time on their personal level. Now, there is this always this constant debate question around how much personal interaction is good or not good between the team members, especially between the team manager and the rest of the team. Of course, that's a matter which we can discuss in more detail, maybe in our dialogues or conversations. But uh, the point is that in this particular situation, when this manager, when this leader started seeing sales target and also started seeing the individual liabilities which the individuals have, like someone had a home loan, someone had a vehicle loan, someone had some other kind of a loan, or some other issues they were facing at that moment. That way, he kind of redesigned the way targets should be created. Now, it's very important to basically, as an example, this is an example given over here that, for example, one of the associates was paying EMIs for a gold loan. So he, of course, he helped work out the right kind of incentives so that the monthly numbers are achieved, so that the monthly EMI goals are achieved for that individual. So what in short this person was doing, this leader was doing, is that he was bringing in not just the context of the company at that time and that okay these are the numbers which needs to be achieved, but he was playing around with those numbers a little bit, figuring out certain things so that and also bring in the individual context of the people who were involved so that something which is achievable can be planned. And this is a very small step. Of course, it requires a little bit more of understanding your team members in a better way, in a way having that connect that trust with them so that they willingly, happily, without having any doubts or embarrassment, share with them what their true needs are. So that level of connection is needed with them. And of course, along with that level of connection, this desire to constantly know and improve them. So in this case, the leader did not just stop at making this chart, but also kept on working with them and constantly nurturing with them so that they can achieve their specific goals. Now, of course, a little bit that meant a little bit extra effort on their end, on this leader's end, but it led to finally excellent results. So now, this is his quote only, where he told that how the numbers increased by about 5 times. So, at a time when situation was so bad, when numbers were going to zero. So, what this example shows us? This example shows us that each of us as individuals, all of us have got amazing capabilities to achieve much more in terms of the potential that we have, and we will achieve those goals that we have if we are guided in the right way, and that's where comes in a great leader. So basically, now of course, there are maybe multiple things which this in this example the manager did. Now my question, maybe if at all you'd like to share in your chat, uh, do you think what was this that this manager did was different from others? Was there anything different? Was it just okay, uh, having that desire to bring in together? And sometimes what happens that when you are faced with such tough black swan kind of events, then somehow somewhere you start trying to achieve more, and maybe it was only because of that. Was it a sustainable practice? Just if you can share a little bit on, I mean, I'll give around a minute to type it out, and then I will jump into certain points. So would love. I mean, of course, we'll have more interaction after I complete this as well, but would love if anyone would like to share anything. What is it that this leader did differently? What made him truly a great people manager in this case? Because see, the team was happy. The team felt that they are being valued in the right way. They could feel personally connected and rightly motivated to do what they were doing. And the business results were also achieved. So, a great people manager is someone who builds trusting relationships with people around them and achieve uh, the core business objectives, the core goals that they have as well. So this is what typically a great people manager does. So let me jump into a little bit more about what really a great people manager is and what this person did, which kind of fits in with the context of great people manager. So this is something. This is a common mantra that now typically has been like is followed by more than 1,000 organizations. It has been created by Great Manager Institute, where the concept is that uh, I'm not sure whether okay. Huh. So where the concept is that that a great manager connects well with their team members regularly. They have this additional amount of personal connect which comes in. It's very important. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the level of personal connect may vary depending on the situation, specific requirements, but an amount of personal connect which is driven by large level of trust, transparency, uh, such that individuals in the team, the stakeholders, are willing to share what they are going through on a personal level. Because at the end of the day, everything is connected. The achievements which one does in their job is connected to what they are going to do in their personal life. So this a little bit of this connection, and not just connection on a personal level, but also communicating the work very clearly, regularly, which happened in this case. Um, Apart from connecting well, this leader also showed this desire to develop and kind of nurture the team as well. As I mentioned, the leader kind of sat together with each of this individual and worked on their goals such that the goals were, as I mentioned, personalized to some extent and helped them achieve the goals within the limitations of whatever they could do, the manager could do in this case. He of course had his own limitations, but that amount of providing guidance is a thing which makes the process of being a great people manager much more sustainable. Apart from doing that, of course, this leader kind of showed the purpose of what they were trying to achieve. So in a way, brought in the personal best of every individual. It was like, okay, we are facing a tough time, and that's why we will kind of give our best. So that that inspirational approach, where the vision, the mission of what they are doing was shown, and of course, having this constant recognition and of their contribution, this celebration which the manager followed in this case, made him also an inspirational leader. So, effectively, it's not really too complicated. A great manager is someone who can connect well, who can develop the team well, constantly focus on nurturing them and inspire the team well. And that these three elements, when they come together, that's where what I mentioned, a great people manager, kind of building trusting relationships and achieving business objectives is created. Now, this is one example which I gave. And of course, what we will do is that, as I mentioned, we will have more discussions, specific queries, specific problems. We'll try to discuss all of those as well. But, let me talk a little bit more about different kinds of managers. So, what this matrix shows, a great people manager is someone who effectively is high in terms of trust. That person builds great trusting relationships with people around them, and also high in terms of performance, what you saw in the particular case study that I talked about. Now, there are certain managers who would be ensuring that performance becomes high, but trust level is low. So that's for sure that such a manager is not going to create something which is sustainable in nature. It's a known fact. These are all data points, empirical data points which are available to us, based on which I'm saying this. That they may be ensuring that the work is getting done at that time, and maybe in some cases also numbers getting achieved. And there are a number of companies, which we know of today as well, which of course I will not name. I mean, we keep on seeing as to how the sales team has been driven to achieve certain numbers, and there is a large amount of churn also happening in those entities, which is sometimes understandable, but we can say for sure that the sustainability of what is happening will not be there. Maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and beyond that, the culture will explode at one time. So effectively, high performance, low trust is not the way to move ahead if it is about building something, even if it is about building performance on a sustainable basis. And of course, we know of certain managers who build high trust but are low on performance. Now, this is interesting because, if you go through various articles that we come up with, we talk about how trust is directly proportional to performance as well. So when I'm saying at one end that trust, building high trust effectively leads to high performance, then is there some kind of manager who has got high level of trust but low level of performance? So yes, that will be there. There'll be certain managers who would have build high level of trust within the organization, within the team that they have, but are not probably focusing on, as I mentioned, development of the team, not really focusing uh, on kind of bringing the right vision, the right purpose, showing them the right purpose of what is to be achieved. And in those elements, if they miss out, they remain a manager who is well connected to their team, and the team feels that there is a large amount of trust within each other, but there is something which gets missed out, and in terms of, as I mentioned, sustainable performance, and effectively that the performance remains low. So effectively, a great people manager is someone who, as I mentioned, builds high trusting relationships to ensure that business performance is also achieved. Yeah, I think it's already mentioned in the slide as well. Now, let's talk about a little bit about what I'll do. I will change track a little bit, and maybe around in the next 5 minutes or so, talk about a few organizations, some examples of certain companies, and these are general companies. So what I did in the last, like in the first half of this session, I talked about one particular example anecdote which comes in from a great people manager who is closely associated with us. Now I will talk about certain global examples, which probably all of us already know about. So I'll not get into the depth of it each, but briefly touch upon each to just talk about how certain organizations in some ways are attempting to create great people managers at scale. So of course, one element is to be able to focus on behaviors that are, most effective for an organizational performance. Now, what happens is that an organization needs to constantly take the pulse, understand the pulse of the team members in the organization, and use that pulse to focus on certain behaviors that are commonly a problem between the all of the departments or majority of the departments in the organization. Now, such kind of pulse survey where the survey is taken from each individual in the context of how they feel their experience with their managers is going on. This leads to identification of clear areas where the focus needs to be done. For example, when we did one such survey with one organization, which I'm not mentioning here, then certain very clear points came out that as a whole, the culture of that organization is failing in terms of listening to the team members very well and thanking the team members regularly. So this is something which came out. So what I'm trying to say here is that while we constantly work on individual leaders, as an organization, it's a duty to constantly figure out how certain behavior areas are there which needs to be focused upon. Now, this, again, we can always Google this case study and know more about what Microsoft is doing with respect to bringing in a culture of listening and open dialogue. Now, this is just an example of how, open dialogue and listening was found to be a problem or found to be an area that needs to be focused upon. And this is what organizations need to do. Apart from the granular level of planning, which is there, okay, for this particular department, this particular demographic, this kind of focus needs to be done. There has to be an overall understanding of culture as well, because it is known, and we have seen this in our experience, that a culture translates. For example, let's say a great people manager is there in one organization. Now that person goes to another organization. Somehow, somewhere, apart from what they bring in from their previous experience, the existing culture of that organization comes and also impacts the behavior of that individual in the context of how they work with the people around them. So that it's very important to constantly work on the culture as well. It's a known fact. Just kind of putting it out there again for all of us here. Then there is a very interesting point about how this is another case study, and many case studies are there around this as well. How critical mass of influencers are created within the organization, such that overall the change which the organization is trying to becomes self-sustaining. We try to do that to a great extent with Great Manager Institute as well, our organization as well. We are a very small organization, so I did not want to bring it as a case study. But we believe that we are effectively creating this movement, a movement where we are bringing in the concept of people management in the minds of every individual, so that their problems are solved using the power of people relationships. So in a way, bringing this entire concept, we even internally call it a religion amongst ourselves, because that's how we are building a religious movement where we are trying to bring in this concept amongst people, everyone who is working, every working professional. Now, in order to do that, what do we do? In order to do that, we know that, okay, when new people join us, then it's, of course, there will be a process which will not be an easy process before anyone starts believing in the mission, in the movement, in the religious approach that we are doing completely. So what is needed is a critical mass of people who are dedicated towards the core vision, the core mission, what the organization wants to achieve. Now, as I mentioned, I will, though I gave an example of Great Management Institute, but of course it's a very small company, so the organization may not really make sense for most of us over here. So a better case study comes in form of Nike, and I'm sure this is a very common case study, so many of you may already be aware of it. But let me share a little bit more, and of course you can search more about this concept of EKIN, Ekins at Nike. So basically, it's just, if you read it, it's just written in a different way, and Nike written opposite is EKIN. So this is a concept which was created where there are a group of Nike devotees who are obsessed with the product, who basically kind of tries, just, they are not sellers, they are not selling the product here there per se. They are just like as mentioned over here, devotees of the product. So effectively their job is to they just meet people and kind of convert them towards becoming a Nike devotee as well. So this small group of people who are there becomes a very critical element of the organization, because they are so obsessed with the vision which Nike believes in that they're able to kind of translate it. And with this small secret group of people, the overall culture also becomes self-sustained in the in trying to achieve the change which it is trying to bring in. So another example is again of Canva app and LinkedIn concept of evangelist, which has been created for this kind of change. Okay, then moving on. So there are, of course, very important tasks which, from an organizational perspective, to create great people managers at scale. It's also needed to have various programs which are focused on behavioral change which are lasting in nature. And how can that happen? That can happen if the program kind of becomes part of the organizational systems in a strong way. So again, it's a very obvious point, but just putting it out there. For example, if programs are made which are not really integrated deeply within the framework of the organizational systems with what the organization is trying to achieve, if it is not measured at a regular interval, not just in the context of the program itself, but also in the context of the organizations, the impact on the organization. If it is not done in a way, then lasting change cannot be brought in. So again, many examples are there. I'm sure many of you already would be doing tons of examples where you are not simply bringing in a learning course from whatever, I mean, XYZ e-learning platform and telling that, okay, you learn this. But you're, while bringing that, you are also looking at how it fits into the overall organizational system, the broader system, and kind of, measure the impact of it on that level so that a lasting change can be brought in. So this is again a very obvious point. This is needed to build great people managers at scale where the organization systems are improved. And are kind of integrated with the whatever program is being brought in. And a very famous example, is from Adobe, which kind of, I mean, in this case, of course, I'm not saying that this is something which needs to be implemented everywhere. In this case, while they evaluated what they are doing well, what their organizational systems are, with that evaluation, they could see that, okay, maybe we can replace the annual performance reviews and create this concept of manager-driven check-in and effectively measure what is mattering at regular interval and measuring it continuously. And in this case, it worked in a great way. So the point is that, of course, the specifics needs to be understood in the organizational context, and then the great people manager, any program for making great people manager needs to be done accordingly. In this case, these are some good numbers which showed how, by replacing the reviews in this particular situation, even there was a decrease in attrition, there was an increase in, involuntary departure. So basically, in short, it worked out very well for them. So now what I did by now, so I gave one good example of a leader who individually was able to bring in a major change for the organization in terms of their revenue at a time when situation was really bad, and was able to do it by following the concept of connect, develop, and inspire, effectively, bringing it into the context of the organization and leading to 5 times increase in the monthly revenue basis, on the basis of this one program which does not even require any money, just extra time and more planning. They were able to create it. Beyond that, I also talked about some, what some certain organizations have been doing in different parts of the world with respect to building people management at scale. I also give example of what we have been doing, some extent, kind of, bringing in a more domestic context over there. And let's talk about a few other practices. Again, these are all practices from various great people managers who are associated with us in some way or the other, but primarily in the context of the great people manager study that we do. So these are some examples of some managers who have been doing certain things. I will read them out. I will kind of explain them briefly also, kind of just to talk about how they have been bringing in a change in the current times through these practices. So, for example, there is this practice called Aaj Ka Mukhya, which is like chief or something. Now, this is something which I'm sure many of you would have heard in the past as well. At least I have heard many similar kind of programs also, where one individual is nominated to kind of lead the team for that day or that week. And basically, I've seen this in banks also, where one individual becomes the bank manager for one day, and they are able to understand the context from their bosses and understand where challenges exist. So this is what happens in this particular situation. It was like this, slightly different from that concept of one day's brand manager or something like that. Here it is like the individual becomes a mentor for the day, which means, and also becomes a center point for the team. And the team basically, you know, and kind of creates a presentation which talks about fundamental learnings, about self-respect, discipline, anger management, and also connects it all to the mentor who is in focus for the day. So what this does is that the entire team understands that individual in a better way in the process. As I mentioned, the whole point of driving this connect between the team members start happening. And in this process of understanding, once the understanding is done about an individual's aspirations, limitations, and apart from that, when they are celebrated, that's where any amount of development and nurturing can also be done. So effectively, no, this is a very exciting practice which has been quite successful in this particular situation. Another practice, grant a wish. Now again, this sounds like a common practice where but again, it was very important in the current times, because what was happening is that in these current times, these tough situations, every individual wanted to feel more trusted, wanted to feel that they are being heard, and that still continues. It's not as if that the current times have changed. It still continues, and it will continue for a while now. That there has to be an additional focus on individuals' aspirations, their situations, and the situations, as we now know very well, is not common for everyone out there. So in this particular grant a wish kind of a practice, when every individual is asked for their wish for the month, somehow somewhere it becomes more diversified in nature, or more, I would say, individualized in nature, that every individual's wish can be handled. Because otherwise, typically, in this case, in this particular situation, the manager already used to do something like this, but they used to mostly focus upon doing one thing, common thing for the entire group, without realizing that maybe sending out a cake to every team member every month is not exactly what everyone wishes to have. Every individual may have their own wishes, and at least if there's a platform there where their wishes are taken, some higher amount of impact can be done. Work stop, again, it's a very known practice, and it was very much needed in the current times, because what happens when you're working from home, effectively, it becomes very tough to understand where to draw the line. And that's where this practice is about, to some extent, drawing the line and bringing in fun during work. And then, of course, knowing the team was another practice done by another manager, which led to, again, lot of impact, because what happens is that when you are in office, sometimes it becomes an easy thing to interact with the managers by knocking on their door and going to their, or maybe going to their desk, whatever it is. But in this case, the entire program was made around how slots can be booked for the manager, and the concept was to have an overall development plan created for the employee, where the focus was on what their goals are, how things are changing. So in this case, it's not just about knowing the team, but also understanding that how their roles are changing in the changing context. Now, what we have seen that in the last 1 year, many roles have changed. Product management has had multiple changes in the way they would be doing work on product management, leading products, because of the digital revolution that we are seeing around us. So in a way, if an overall development plan in the changing context were created, which happened in this case, then then the team members start feeling more connected, and they start realizing that their development is being taken care of within the changing time. So this was why this particular practice is mentioned here, and why it worked in the current times. So these four examples have been given here. I'll talk about one practice that I follow also. Of course, I need to do a better job of following it, uh, but I try to follow to some extent. I call it connect the dots. So basically, what I do is that, effectively, and especially in the last 1.5 years or so, I realized very much that every individual is, is creating something, is learning something, is achieving something, and sometimes they are not able to actually know the value of what they have created, learned, or achieved, because things change so fast. Especially in the last few years in this volatile world, things are changing so fast. For example, you learn a particular skill, and then maybe it does not really become useful in the work that one is doing, or you learn a skill outside of work and you are not sure how to use it. So effectively, this is a very common problem, especially in the context of the changing scenario today, where things in 1 year's time, like for example, artificial intelligence 1.5 years ago used to be a very complex technology. Now it is like an extremely easy technology. So the point is that things change very fast, and in such a scenario, it becomes, team members start getting confused about what really have they achieved. Have they really achieved anything by learning something? So that's where what I do is that try to help individuals connect the different dots. So dots are those individual achievements or learning or skills, something as simple, very simple also, not necessarily work oriented. It can be, a skill of doing good cooking also, maybe, as an example I'm saying. So if you just create all of those as dots, and then at regular intervals, maybe 1 month or 2 months time with the team, you sit and try to figure out patterns out of those dots, connect one dot to the other and another dot to the another one, and effectively create patterns which effectively feed into the career development of that individual. That becomes very exciting. What it does is that, of course, once the dot is connected, they can feel very clearly the value of all that learning that they have had, and they want to keep on learning and keep on contributing. But also what it does is that it creates anticipation. It creates this confidence that, okay, even if I'm not learning right now, something I'm not able to see very clearly what is the benefit of what I have learned, I will actually extract some or the other benefit out of it, because Ashwin will come and we will sit together and we'll figure out a pattern out of it. So that level of trust starts happening. Okay, maybe this is not really directly useful, but let me put this as a dot in my grand scheme of things, and later we will connect the dots. So that mindset starts coming in, which allows the individual to constantly grow in an innovative way, which is the need of today. So that's one of my practices I wanted to share as well, apart from all these amazing practices. So moving on. So basically, now this is a new concept actually created by Shivangi from our team. So she worked on the concept that, okay, oxytocin is something which has been proven, and there's a very excellent TED talk also which you can see about it. And oxytocin has been proven as the molecule that helps develop trust. So it's the trust molecule, or it is the morality molecule. So effectively, great people managers, they also work on oxytocin, which means more this molecule exists within them, the more they are trustworthy and more they are trusting. So effectively, this is how it works. The oxytocin, the concept of that. So whatever practices, so what the whole agenda here is, whatever practices are being done by a great people manager, they should be designed to release further oxytocin within the teams, so that they can keep on building their trust further. And of course, like recognition of high performers, we all know that this releases oxytocin. Expectation, building the expectations right, keeping the promises, ensuring that skilling is being constantly transferred and improved. Being open, of course, is a very critical element of building trust. Showing care, and of course investing in the like the personal and the professional growth of the individual, and being real. So effectively, these are elements which have been known to connect to the molecule called oxytocin, effectively leading to a better trustworthy environment within the organization, which is what the core of a great people manager is. So when I say connect, develop, and inspire, I am effectively talking about building trust or building trusting relationships. And as I mentioned, once that is being done within this framework, that also leads to improvement of business performance. So this is all from my side. The reason why I've closed it 20 minutes in advance is so that we can have conversations, we can have questions answered. Would love to answer any type of question in the context of the frameworks of GMI, or in the context of my own personal experiences, whatever is needed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ashwin. Before we move into the Q&A session, we will be initiating the poll. Request all the participants to kindly share your feedback on our today's session. While you are doing so, request all participants to kindly post your questions pertaining to our today's session in the chat window. Once again, I thank all our participants for joining our session today. We have received a lot of inquiry about the e-certificate offered by HRAI. You can claim your e-certificate by sharing your details. When I say details, that is your name and the session attended in an email to the email ID provided in the chat window. Please ensure you share this latest by end of this month. We will be emailing these certificates to you based on details received.
Any startup related question also I would love to answer, because I am an entrepreneur.
Absolutely, sir. We have received some good comments. We have Parvati who is saying out here that he's so confident, really very good sessions. Sir, can I know how to manage those managers who are little egoistic and while communicating, they pass sarcastic comments. They are on very important post of ex-manager in finance, in various them. A lot of short forms he has used there, but they try to show us low. So about those managers who try to put down few folks, what are your comments and views about that?
Yeah, no, that's a a very common problem. And when you talk to some of these managers, they would not even be aware that this is something that they are facing, or they are doing, that they are actually doing sarcastic comments, that they're actually making people feel low. That's a reality. You talk to them and you realize, oh, this is this is a surprise for them. So the point is, at times, one of the first steps to be done with these managers is to show them the mirror. It's very important. It's very important to show them the mirror at regular intervals, telling them really what their style of management is. Now, whatever be that mirror can be in form of a survey taken of the team members around them, and based on that, creating a profile and telling, okay, this is how you are as a people manager. These are your common problems as told by everyone around you. Or it can be in any other form. The point is that the first step is that a mirror needs to be shown, but that's not enough, of course. Then there has to be certain practices which that individual needs to start bringing in by becoming aware of their problem. Now, if someone is aware that they are doing something like this, and maybe they again do something like this, and if they're informed that, okay, maybe something like every day there's a tracker for that individual, and maybe that tracker is just, it can, if there's a problem, if the manager is too senior, you can also have an anonymous kind of tracker, depending on how you want to do it. The situation is there, and there is this, this count happens that, okay, today this manager did 10 such incidents of putting people down. Now, first step is that the mirror has already been shown, so the manager is aware that there's a problem within themselves. Now they are seeing it on a daily basis. Okay, today I made 5 such mistakes. The other day I made, next day I made 8 such mistakes. So now they are becoming more conscious of the mistakes that they are doing. And once that starts happening, chances are very high that that individual will start to check themselves further, because they know that there is a clear tracker of their problem, being there for everyone to see. So I think this is one of the ways. Now, I'm sure with this specific situation, we can think of many more interesting, exciting ways. But yeah, this is one of the ways.
Awareness creation, beautifully answered, sir. Thank you so much. With this, it is said that employees do not leave the organization. They leave it because of their reporting managers. So at times, it is very important to showcase and highlight, educate the manager where they are going wrong at times too. Beautifully answered. With this, we have our next question. That's from Mr. Chandel. What are 5 top qualities of great manager as HR, and give examples as well, please?
Okay, wow. So I think the HR folks here, maybe Peterson can give a much better answer to this than myself, because I'm not really from the HR background per se. But yes, be it HR or be it any manager, the major qualities are always connected to this concept which I mentioned about building trusting relationships. All the qualities should be designed to kind of revolve around it. That's the reality today. And for example, recently I was reading this article. It was, I think, mentioned in it was in the Ken. The Ken is basically a magazine. So there they talked about how the HR qualities need to change because the world is changing today based on all the changes that we are seeing. This whole concept of current context, which we are talking about right now, and they have talked about how HR qualities need to change. When I was reading that article, I felt, yeah, it's good. It's talking about good things, but effectively it is talking about the same thing, that every HR also needs to become a great people manager, and that's how they will do their job in a better way. Effectively, that was what the article was saying in short, trying to say the same thing. So basically, all the concepts of connecting well with the team, not just team in this case, with every individual who is responsible to be associated with the HR, focusing on the development in a way that, okay, as an example, I'll tell you. So now, when we talk about development of the team members, uh, generally there is this perception that HR talks about the development of the team in the context of the development is for the organization. Now, it's not true for all the cases, but that is the general mindset which many people have. About the way. For example, if HR comes up with a new program, okay, this new program is there, it will probably help the company. That is the mindset in many cases, of course, not in all of them. So now, if while introduction of a new program for the team, if it is very clearly connected to the individual aspirations of the people, and it may sound strange. Why am I connecting the individual aspirations and not just the organizational aspirations? Trust me, the world, as we're talking about a change in this world, right? This is the change now, that we need to start looking at what that individual wants to grow in their career. For example, if I am let's say, data scientist, I will probably start learning more of machine learning tomorrow and whatever. So maybe even if machine learning is not something which is important within the organization's needs today, but I am constantly thinking about it. So somehow, somewhere, the program which is being designed for me has to consider my own career growth also. If that kind of starts coming in, the amount of trust which HR can build over with the individuals will also increase significantly. So yeah, the same concept, the qualities are the same. Being able to connect well with everyone by being transparent, by being fair, by communicating very clearly, and then focusing on their development, by not just talking about their growth within the organization, but also talking about their growth in their career. No, if you start doing that, the amount of trust which HR can build with the team will be huge. And then, of course, the third one is, of course, inspiration. And inspiration is generally done by recognition, celebration. These are all elements which kind of lead to further inspiration. These are all very critical elements. The amount of oxytocin which gets released when there is celebration and recognition is the highest. So, one cannot deny the importance of that. So these are the qualities, which an HR needs to have, according to me.
Well answered, Mr. Ashwin. This takes us to our next question. That's from Srinivasa. Whether the top management leaders can change their behavior and approach towards the people and be an effective influencer, will they accept and adopt the change?
Okay. No. So top management leaders can change. They have to change. There is no other option they have, right? Okay. I'll give you another example. Now this is a good example. Okay. Because this is coming in from a close personal experience. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of Prasenjit Bhattacharya, who is the CEO and founder of Great Place to Work India, and he's an amazing leader himself. And by the way, I'm telling this with his permission only, because he has given me the permission to share this anecdote anywhere. So that's why I'm naming him very clearly in this. So basically, he is an amazing leader. Everyone knows him as this person who is like a master coach. Even in that sense, he has coached politicians, he has coached corporate leaders, everyone. So now he has had this problem of constantly trying to no, not really listening well to every suggestion that comes in and trying to justify his own opinion over it. Generally, many leaders get this problem because they have achieved so much in life that they think that what they have achieved kind of drives the experience and everything, and that drives the decisions which they take. But the world is such so interesting that despite all the experience an individual has, there's always something new to learn. Now, this is a common problem, that not listening and constantly trying to justify their own thoughts over and above someone else's thoughts. Now, this is a behavioral issue, but he was aware. He was aware that he has this issue and he needed to work on it. So he started this simple concept called call me at 7 p.m. It was called 7 p.m. call or something, where any individual in the organization can give him a call at 7 p.m. And during those 15 minutes of the call, his job will only be to listen and not judge the individual during that call. Because that judgment, okay, why are you saying this? Okay, I know this better than you. It always happens. But that judgment will not happen within those 15 minutes or within those 30 minutes of call. Now, what this means that he kind of brought this change to his behavior only by a forced way for 30 minutes, right, in the day. That's it. So, which is a not so tough thing to do if you are determined to make a change. So, he started doing this. Now, this thing became a habit, which means during the regular day meetings or any other meeting also, he became the same person who was listening more. So this is what happens. He forced himself to do something by giving a time for it. Okay, 7 to 7:30, I am this person who listens. And by just doing it on a regular basis and seeing the impact of doing this, that became part of his habit in his regular day-to-day life also. And effectively, then he changed this concept and their behavior changed. And that's the important part here. Behavior can change. So this is an example how behavior can change. So yeah, that's the answer for Srinivas.
Beautiful example, Mr. Ashwin. It always says that great change happens when you bring that change within yourself. Greatly put across. With this, we have our next question that comes. What good and mature leadership looks like during the pandemic? What are those key traits that have helped leaders to maintain business continuity without much friction? Few examples, if you can put across.
Okay. Friction comes out of doubts, a lot of that. And some good examples which organizations have done, like when the whole pandemic started last year, maybe in March or so, they came out clean, right? Became transparent. Okay, this is the situation. Chances are high that we will have this problem, we'll have this, whatever. So being transparent, being clean, being clear, communicating clearly was one of the, like, it sounds like a very simple practice, but that does not happen too often by the organizations, because generally a manager or a junior employee does not even know what the organization is truly going through. And if you don't know what they are going through, and situation like pandemic coming along with it, which is full of doubts, everything is doubtful around you, the amount of doubt in your mind, it keeps on increasing. So this simple practice of just being clear and communicating clearly, which we also followed, and I'm sure lots of organizations have followed, became a very critical element to handle the business continuity issues, because that led to, and of course in that clarity you are very clear that okay, there will be no attrition and no one will be asked to leave or whatever it is. Whatever your policy is, you have to be clear about it. No doubts and no lies about it, or nothing to be hidden about it. And that gave a lot of clarity to individuals and helped in business continuity in a big way. And of course, apart from this, figuring out opportunities within the challenges that exist is also very important to build in the business continuity. For example, in our case, when we realized that okay, this change is happening and digital coaching will become more and more popular, digital will become more popular, right? So we knew it very clearly that we are anyways digital. We have been doing digital work in the past also, but now we'll scale it up. Now we'll primarily call ourselves like that all the programs that we run for people managers are done in a digital manner. So that is the core of what we do, and that worked for us. So effectively understanding the situation which is around you, and then bringing in that understanding and try to convert the challenges into opportunities. Now, this is something, I'm an entrepreneur, so I always say this. So, that kind of helps in business continuity as well. So, yeah, so that's
Beautifully answered. The same thing is what we too experienced during this entire scenario of the pandemic, and all had like changed, adapted to this new normal that we have all been through. So we have our next question that's from Mr. Tushar Gadvi. He's asking what kind of additional responsibilities and ownership come naturally along with the title of great manager, and how do they help organizations in growing?
yeah. No, that's a very good question. So basically, yeah. So additional responsibilities and ownerships. The same responsibility which every leader should have, that just gets more prominent. That's the additional responsibility in a way. What is the responsibility? The responsibility is to ensure that everyone in your team is, as I mentioned, having this beautiful, trusting relationship with each other and with you. That's one responsibility. And the biggest responsibility is to ensure the goals that are there as an organization, the business objectives need to be achieved. Now, this is what needs to be done. And this is what comes along with being a great manager also. But it just becomes more prominent. And as part of this major responsibility, you have to constantly be aware of your team members as individuals. Now, that is, I will say, not an additional responsibility, it's part of the core responsibility, but sometimes people do not realize this simple thing that everyone is an individual, they have got their individual problems, individual aspirations, and goals, and that needs to be understood in that context. It's very important. And of course, so maybe a little bit more of extra effort is needed, to do that, to constantly be aware of who your team members are. But if that is done, if that individual level understanding is there, it makes a lot of sense. Also, I will add a very small quick point. Another additional role which one needs to play is to also start doing a little bit, or not, it may sound a little odd, little bit of branding also. Now, a great manager is also supposed to, maybe when they are doing a program, like for example, I mentioned my program and I call it Connect the Dots. So give it a name, give it a little bit of branding, because the world, the way what you are trying, the good that you are trying to do can only be accepted and absorbed in a good way if there is some amount of branding around it. So a little bit of effort towards that also is needed as a great manager. So once that personal connect is built, that individual knowledge is built, along with things like building memorable branded practices, somehow somewhere that title of great manager is justified further, and it helps the organization in growing in a big way. I mean, there are tons of examples. Dr. Ankita Singh is a good example, from like HRI itself, and so many great examples are that once you become the flag bearer for the organization, you become the flag bearer that, okay, you are representing the organization everywhere, be it in terms of new recruitments which are being done in the organization, or the overall culture which is being driven for the organization as well. So yes, of course, it's a very clear formula. More number of great managers in an organization, more engagement, more trusted employee experience, and better performance overall as an organization.
Beautiful, amazing. Thank you, Mr. Ashwin, for the great learnings in the form of stories of great leaders and insightful session. Key takeaways when it comes to trust, the high trust performance matrix, design programs for lasting behavioral change, and yes, not to forget the oxytocin, the Balzac way. Okay, it's been a pleasure being with you today. I'm sure our participants have had a lot to learn and take away from this session. This would not have been possible without Great Managers Institute, where we are privileged to be working with them on this series. Though we all know about Great Manager Institute, I would want you to share a few words about Great Manager Institute.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So we are effectively, we have this vision to create a world where every individual gets to work with great people managers. That's our vision. We genuinely believe in this vision. and we are working towards ensuring this happens. And for this vision, of course, we need to create more great people managers, and that's why we have got this, certification program where we certify great people managers. We help them go through a behavioral evolution in that process by formation of habit, as I mentioned, which includes learning, e-learning courses, but also includes this, this artificially intelligent guidance-based coach also. And along with that, we have got lots of programs, lots of mentors from all across the country, in this case, who become part of the program and help the users learn more and get coached in a better way. So we have this thing that we have this we call this lifetime digital coach for people managers. So there is a lifetime digital coach that we have for people managers. And of course, we are also pretty known for the great people manager study that we do, where we basically evaluate managers and organizations from all over India, and based on that evaluation, they get listed within the top companies and top individuals as great people managers. So yeah, these are some of the things that we do. We are also building this amazing community where the core goal of the community is to crack the code of people leadership. So we are working with the community to help that this whole code is cracked, and we do play a very important role in the entire business ecosystem in India right now, where the thoughts which are getting generated out of such a community can actually become the thought of the business ecosystem. So we can do that. So people can join the community, they can share their thoughts, and they can become thought leaders in the process as well.
So we have a link out here wherein you all can register for the Great Manager Certification Program. So the link is out here in the chat box. If anyone would want to go through and register themselves, they can definitely do so. Thank you, Mr. Ashwin, for letting us know about Great Manager Institute, and thanks for the benefits extended to HRAI members. Do join us for our next masterclass tomorrow on the topic Leading People in Current Times, the Art of Giving and Receiving Effective Feedback, a session by Mr. Varun Rajani, founder and CEO, BlazeScan Technologies. That's on the 24th of August, 2021. Request you to kindly register for this event and the link mentioned in the chat window. Also to join the Dialogue 2021 WhatsApp chat group through the invite link shared in the chat window. So that's it from us today. See you soon. Stay safe, take care, and bye for now. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shyam. We can hereby conclude with our today's session.